Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all here. My name is Bither. I'm the curator for performing arts here at the Walker. This we've done the last few years as a way to kind of just launch our season and have a chance to show you some of the behind the scenes, some of the clips and sounds from the season ahead. The last couple years, we've been putting together a kind of trailer. It's been going from like 8 to 7 to 6. We've gotten our 20 event season down to 3 minutes. So I'd like to kick things off with when I think Andy just did an amazing job on this video here on staff at the Walker. And so let's move ahead. You can see the condensed season in 3 minutes, and then I'll rejoin you to tell you some of the details about it all. Thanks.
The dancers are not pretending to be other than themselves.
Theater, it's making itself irrelevant instead of being the thing that it is, that is so unique.
How hip-hop can I be if they let me onto their set?
Some of the dances that I make could, in a sense, go on, and I simply have to choose a point when I'm going to say, well, this is the end of this dance.
My fight with the Modernist Project is that it is about an alienation.
Baby, come and carry me away to the place known to only you and me. And maybe time will pass us by and never know, 'cause sometimes stillness is the only way to be. But still, I can see you leaving now. In the end, it all falls down, and I'm here, just breathing out. In the end, it all falls down, and I'm here, just breathing out. In the end, it all falls down, and I'm here, just breathing out.
Yeah, let's have an applause for that. And these are important supporters make it all happen. Couple just general notes I'd like to make about the season this year. Starting for those of you who may not know, the Walker's been involved in the contemporary performing arts really since the 50s, established its role nationally in the 60s and 70s, and since that time has been really committed to supporting a whole range of global innovators in dance, performance, music, theater. you know, we see our role as critical to not just the presentation, to not just offering a window to the upper Midwest of what the newest trends and newest, most exciting work is in these different art forms, but also in the development and commissioning of new work, which we've really been doing since the 70s. And you'll see that has continued more than ever in the last few seasons. But something that we don't, I think, talk about quite enough is the fact that equal to our commitment to artists first is our commitment to audiences as well. And in fact, I think in the performing arts, it's almost doesn't need to be said, but the artists and the projects that happen on this stage are only half of the equation. It's really the audience and people like yourselves and your friends and the circles of people, so many of whom believe in contemporary art and contemporary culture, new performance in the Twin Cities, who really make it happen. The reason that is that you know, particularly for the kind of work we're doing, it requires the kind of curiosity, intense focus, what some artists refer to as you know, the kind of work we do doesn't really allow you to just lean back and let it wash over you and be entertained as much as it kind of encourages people to lean forward and to be asking questions in their own heads to us and afterward to the artist, to be sort of pulled in a really vital way. And that's why we find, you know, I hope the work that you'll see this season feels uniquely relevant, timely, and we hope essential. You know, what we do in a season, it's a little like curating an exhibition, although it's spread over 9 months. We really do shape the range of work around some ideas, around a sense of balance. We try to support some key master artists who have been essential to the art forms for decades and who have had long histories with the Walker. I'd say the bulk of our programming is kind of mid-career artists, people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, who have made work for a while and are continuing to innovate in exciting ways. And selectively, a group of emerging artists who we just think are fabulous new voices who need to be heard, and commitment from a place like the Walker makes a tremendous difference in the in the upward thrust of their careers. We're living right now in a uniquely interesting, to say the least, times. It's a transnational, hyper-connected, sort of, for lack of a better term, sort of a post-discipline era. So even when I was saying we do jazz, we do contemporary dance, we do theater, you know, those labels in some ways they sort of weigh down the disciplines that we work in. And a lot of the artists these days would rather not be put into that kind of box. In fact, there was I saw a quote recently about one of the musicians that we're presenting this year, Sam Abaddon, and the writer said, you know, applying a genre to this work, you know, ends up making it, sort of stealing its soul. And so that's why we do festivals like Out There. We really often don't try to say, well, this is dance, because people have a certain set notion around what is jazz, what is dance, what is this or that art form. So we really try to offer each of these individual projects as something that's unique in and of itself. So what's new about this coming season? We've got 6 major commissioned works. It's almost a third of the season. Commissioned meaning that a year or two ago, an artist had a great idea. Typically, they're people that we've worked with before. They needed some money. We didn't have enough money to fund the whole thing, but we could help contribute to the idea, and we really take a chance. And we are thrilled that you guys take a chance with us. And we've had great success with the commissions. They've toured all over the world, and we have great success with audiences like yourselves willing to take a chance and come see something brand new. We work closely with the artists. Oftentimes, those commissions are developed on our stages here. Our staff is very involved in working with them, helping identify other funding, touring stops, things like that. And this season, more than in the past, I think, we have more than just Out There. Last year we celebrated a puppetry thread, but this year we have 4 separate kind of embedded mini festivals into the season. A look at new work coming out of the Congo in Central Africa called Despair Be Damned. A festival around, and a whole, really in some ways, season-wide focus around the work of the great choreographer, dance maker, Merce Cunningham, who passed away just about 2 years ago. A special look, 2-day kind of mini festival of, about the music of jazz pianist Vijay Iyer and composer. And of course, our Out There Festival of alternative performance, work that kind of spans the range from new theater to performance art to new styles of movement-based culture and media culture. I think the other thing that I've noted, and it wasn't really conscious, but is that in the troubled, challenged times that we live in, I think particularly the younger artists and particularly the global artists, but not exclusively non-American artists, are really reflecting a time of great upheaval. They're reflecting an unwillingness to settle for the way things are, a new kind of global generation of artists who are, I think their work are kind of reflecting a disruption, an indignation, as well as a sense of hope and inspiration and some kind of belief that there can be a new day. And you'll see that woven throughout, the presentation tonight. Before I forget, when we finish, we're going to have some champagne toast. We have a couple surprises for you that will come along that you'll see as we move on. And I'm also going to invite you at the end of tonight to come down and check out, get to see backstage, see how the artists, where they hang out, the green room, our famous signature wall where we have all the artists sign after they performed at the Walker. You can find your favorite artist who you've seen here. And just to celebrate with us here, and then we're going to all retire up to the balcony bar. Speaking of the balcony bar, you know, it's a new thing in the last year or two. We're really committed to having a social space where you can meet artists, have a drink, hang out before a show, after a show. It's where we host things like our speakeasy on Friday nights, on Saturday nights, where groups of audience members can sit down together and talk about what they saw. It's sort of like a book club without the artists there, so you can feel free to talk, reveal you know, anything you thought about a performance, and we found people really love that chance to kind of hear other people's ideas and perceptions of work. We have post-performance discussions most Friday nights on shows that are running multiple performances. On the Thursday nights, we have the artists always join us up in the balcony bar, so it's a chance to meet them, talk with them directly. There's also lots of chances to engage hands-on, master classes and open rehearsals and salons and talks. So keep an eye out on our website and just in our materials about, beyond just coming to see the show, how can you participate, how can you work with the artists and be engaged. Sometimes there's even opportunities to perform with the artists. They often, a number of times each season, artists will come and will be seeking out some local performers or other people to be in their works themselves. And finally, after the shows are over, we're doing more and more online, commissioning essays, having reviews developed that we don't tell them anything of what they're supposed to say, and people will write, local artists in particular will write reviews online for us. We'll have video and artist conversations online, lots of material that you can check out before you come to see a show or read at your leisure after you see a performance. So we're going to kick off, move right into our season. Starting next weekend is this focus and special look at artists, contemporary dance and music artists who are making work from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. There's very few places in the world that are as challenged governmentally, in terms of the long civil war that this country has lived through, in terms of poverty and governmental corruption. And it's amazing that artists are able to make work there, and it's amazing that this work is some of the most transformative and powerful work, I think, that's going on anywhere in the world. It's a testament to the tenacity of artists and how sometimes in the most desperate circumstances, creativity and artistic inspiration can bubble up. We start with a artist named Faustin Linyakula. Faustin is from a city named Kisangani in northern Congo, but in the last 15 or so years, he's been recognized not just throughout Africa, but in Europe and in parts of the States as well as one of the leading forces and interesting thinkers in pushing the art form of contemporary dance in new directions. We did a piece about 4 years ago called Festival of Lies at the Cedars Cultural Center. This new work, which is called More Future, kind of turns the British punk anthem of No Future on its head. Faustin has said that in a place like the Congo, the most subversive thing you can do is to actually to spark hope and to be hopeful, which is not an always easy thing to do. He's in this performance. It's as much a concert as it is a dance show. He's brought the great guitarist Flame Kapaya with him, his first real tour in the U.S. He's a guitarist who plays a double neck guitar, kind of plays this style of music called Nambolo, which has elements of soukous and American funk and other styles. In the Congo, it's a real kind of party music, sort of it's about getting material items and having fun on the weekends and things. And Faustin wanted to turn that around as well, have this style of infectious music playing live on stage as he and his two other dancers perform in and around it, but also have this piece make a statement around the current political situation in the Congo. It has a kind of punk rage energy, but it also has a tremendous amount of beauty and a kind of meditative quality at times. It goes in and out. It's a dreamlike kind of experience, but it's also a beautifully intense experience as well. So this is called More, More, More Future. It's touring in 5 or 6 places in North America, where the first U.S. stop will be the U.S. debut of this work. These are these incredible costumes designed by a Malian-based fashion artist who's now based in Paris, one of the best-known fashion artists coming out of Africa. And Faustin is an amazing performer, mover himself, has a really slinky quality about his movement. The night before he opens his show, as part of our Target Free Thursday nights, he's going to do a little lecture that's really as much a performance as a lecture about making work in the Congo. And so that'll be a great chance to get us sort of behind the scene. I spent, I don't know, about 5 hours in Kenya with him last fall over drinks that led to several more drinks. And to hear the stories about what he faces around making his work, and the fact that he's seeding multiple small art centers throughout his city to encourage the next generation of dance makers and performance artists to make their work as well, is kind of remarkable. He's always threatened with expulsion. He was in exile for 9 years, but he's constantly riding that edge and somehow is able to work the system so he himself stays out of jail, but continues to be sort of, I think mostly because he's kind of revered internationally as such an important creative figure in the world of dance. So he'll do a performative lecture, and then late in that same night, next Thursday, we're showing the Midwest debut of a film called Benda Billy, about this amazing group of street musicians, disabled artists who created this band a number of years ago. It's called Staff Benda Bilili. The sad news is that they were going to perform as part of Despair Be Damned on the following Tuesday at Cedar Cultural Center. Their visas ended up being delayed dramatically, and so they've had to cancel their entire 16-city tour. But we still get to show the film, which is an inspired documentary about them, and we hope in a future season to be able to bring this remarkable group back. If later, over drinks in the balcony bar, I can tell you the woes of what it is these days of getting international artists, especially from places like Central Africa, to our shores. The first music concert of the year, Annie Clark, a great indie rock singer, songwriter, and also a fabulous electric guitarist, will be coming to launch her U.S. tour here. She's got a brand new record called Strange Mercy. It's just gotten a 9 review out of 10 in Pitchfork. For those of you who follow the indie rock kind of website, that's a big deal. First show is nearly sold out. She's doing 2 shows. The second show is getting close to sold out. What's interesting about her work, I think, is she's right on that sort of intelligent edge of indie rock and pop music. There's a real kind of tension in her work because she's this porcelain beauty with a wispy voice. She's a great singer, sings songs of a kind of sublimated, intense violence and emotional rupture, the combination is fantastic. The new record is getting all kinds of attention, and there's a singer named Kate LeBlanc who's going to open the concert, a kind of Nico-like figure from Cardiff, Wales, also supposed to be great live. So hope you can come out for that. Lucy Guerin is a leading dance maker from Australia. Lucy's a figure I've kind of followed from afar for a number of years, but finally got to see her work about 1.5 years ago at Dance Theater Workshop in New York. And I didn't even really know what this work was going to be about. This was a little over 2 years after the bridge collapse that we had here in Minneapolis. Lucy, I knew was an artist that we were strongly interested in just by reputation and things I'd seen on tape. But I was completely knocked out by this work, Structures and Sadness. I think it obviously had a kind of different emotional resonance for me and for the people I think it will in the Twin Cities who we went through our own collapse of a bridge traumatically. And the piece, I'll let her talk a little bit about it, but just to mention that I brought with me my sister-in-law. She goes and sees occasional concerts, who lives in New Jersey, and I said, do you want to see this dance thing with me? And she came with me and just also fell in love with this work. It's a kind of piece that has an open accessibility. There's a bit of a narrative structure that tells a story, and it's theatrically quite brilliant and moving. I'm going to show you first hear a little bit from Lucy herself talking about the piece, and then show a short clip from the work.
Hello, I'm Lucy Guerin, and I'm very much looking forward to bringing my work Structure and Sadness to the Walker Arts Centre. I have a really distinct memory of dancing at the Walker Arts Centre when I was a young dancer in America, and being very impressed by the organisation, and to bring my own work here is really, I suppose, a bit of a highlight for me in my career. So I'm standing in front of the Westgate Bridge, and this bridge collapsed in 1970, and this has formed the starting point for my work Structure and Sadness, which I'm bringing to Minneapolis. The Westgate Bridge was built to join the centre of Melbourne to the inner city west, which was before that a rather disenfranchised area, and so it really connected these two communities once it was finally finished. But during its construction in 1970, it collapsed, killing 35 people. My interest in making a work about the bridge, I think, is both technical and emotional. A lot of the movement was constructed using principles of torsion and compression and different tensions, and then there's also the human side of this story and the people whose families were destroyed by this accident. And I know, disaster strikes many communities, or most communities probably, at one time or another, and I know that Minneapolis has had a fairly recent and very tragic bridge collapse, which it'll still be feeling the repercussions of. I think bridges are very beautiful, and although the Westgate Bridge is no architectural masterpiece, I think it has a beautiful sweep, and I suppose that was also one of my reasons for wanting to make the work. Thank you, and looking forward to coming to Minneapolis.
There's a beautiful neon sculptural scenic design in the background, but during this piece, the first third or so, you're watching the dancers set up these kind of deck of house of cards, and it builds throughout, and then there's a kind of healing final two-thirds that transpires in the work. So we hope you'll be able to join us for Structures and Sadness. In the early part of November, we're celebrating a 40-plus year relationship with the choreographer Merce Cunningham. Probably more than anyone in American dance in the last half century, Merce Cunningham transformed the way we think about movement and dance on stage. He innovated in so many different ways, and he was particularly known for his use of chance operations, where the music, decor, and movement would be created separately, and then you would do that leaning forward and make those links yourself, and it's remarkable how quickly and how often that would happen as a spectator. He didn't create things with a center point on stage. He would create a sense of the world on stage, where dancers were occupying often all parts of the landscape on stage. He commissioned all kinds of fantastic electronic and other styles of music. He worked actively with his collaborative partner, another major force in 20th century culture, John Cage. You may have heard, but a few months ago, the Walker Arts Center announced that it had just acquired the entire collection of sets, props, costumes of the company, which is a treasure trove of contemporary art of the later part of the 20th century and the first part of the 21st. We thought our last project with Merce was going to be the event in the quarry, Ocean, but when the discussion around the acquisition of these amazing pieces started to take place, we knew we had to bring the company back one last time. It was Merce's desire that his dance company, the ones he trained himself, would disband within I think it's 2 years after his death. So the last performances of the company will be happening this December. This will be the last, obviously, performances, the last chance to see this fantastic company of dancers, the Merce Cunningham Dance Company, here in the Upper Midwest. It's oddly enough, after 40 years and 15 engagements and numerous commissions and lots of residencies, this will actually be the first time the full company will perform on a stage at the Walker. We're also opening the first of the exhibitions right around the same time. It's called DanceWorks 1. It will open the night before we open Cunningham's company, and it focuses on the relationship and the collaborative artwork of Robert Rauschenberg, who worked closely with Cunningham in many different parts, particularly the early stages of his creative work. But we start things off with Jerome Bell, who's a kind of conceptual, I think, brilliant theater artist who makes these performance pieces that kind of strip a lot of things away, makes us look and feel the sense of a theater, of a space and time. And in this piece, he's done a series of portraits that are focused on the lives of dancers, not necessarily the creative person, the choreographer, but it's actually the executor, the bodies, the person who really makes the dance happen on stage. And this is based on a dancer who he met and became actually hired to perform with one of his works, named Cedric Anderou, who was a principal dancer with the Cunningham Company for 9 years in New York. He's a French dancer, a beautiful performer, and Jerome shaped this performance piece with Cedric coming out and telling the story of his life and how he came to dance, how he started dancing. And what I love about it is, for those who maybe never got Cunningham, never liked it, or never even saw his work, it's a fabulous introduction, but it's also a kind of crystalline piece of performance art in and of itself, in the form of a kind of storytelling lecture. He dances some of the pieces. He talks about dancing with Trisha Brown and with Lyon Opera Ballet, and then ultimately with Jerome Bell. But the bulk of the conversation is about dancing for Merce Cunningham, and how it took him almost 2 years before suddenly the light bulbs went off and he kind of got this sense, this revolutionary ideas around space and time that Cunningham used. Here's, we actually, as you'll note as we go along, we were able to get a number of the artists who even are based overseas to send us videotapes about their works. So you heard from Lucy Guerin. Now, this particular, Jerome is a funny guy anyway, but I think it was 2 in the morning and he was completely jet lagged and he had just gotten home from another, he's very in demand in Europe, and he was good enough to make a little tape about the making of Cedric Anderou.
Hello, my name is Jérôme Bell. I'm a French choreographer based in Paris, France. Maybe some of you have seen my work because I have already shown different works in Minneapolis, like The Show Must Go On, and also Pichet Kunchun and myself. Cédric Andrieux is my last piece. It's a piece about a dancer called Cédric Andrieux. Cédric Andrieux is telling the audience in the most simple way about his life as a dancer, and is showing extracts of dance he has done before. And what you have to know is that he worked for 8 years with Merce Cunningham in New York.
Sorry, you heard this already, but...
So that's the thing. It's a piece that everybody can understand. You don't need to know anything about contemporary dance or whatever. On the contrary, so bring your cousins and grandmothers and everything, and everybody. Sorry.
I just wish Jerome was able to come with the piece this year. The Cunningham Company will perform for 4 performances on the McGuire stage. It's a program we designed with the company to show off sets and costumes, but also to show 3 great pieces from 3 different eras by Merce Cunningham. It starts with Antic Meat from 1958. He performed that in his very first engagement in the Twin Cities in 1963. Moves on to Rainforest with sets designed by Andy Warhol and music by David Tudor. And then finishes with Pond Way, which was from 1998. We showed once in collaboration with Northrop Auditorium right around the time of its creation, but it will be great. It's a beautiful piece to have it back. This is Merce talking about
the dancers
Rainforest.
are not pretending to be other than themselves. They are, in a way, realizing their identities through the act of dancing. They are, rather than being someone, doing something.
These are these wild parachute dresses. They are full parachutes, incredibly heavy, that Rauschenberg designed for this piece, Antic Meat, which is a kind of vaudevillian romp. In some ways, it was Merce kind of poking fun at some of his predecessors, including Who He Danced With, Martha Graham. And then he has a sweater on that has no head hole on it as well. And then he's kind of leaning back and forth. It's a comic but very witty and sharp, interesting piece from, like I said, the 50s. This is a Merce talking about Pond Way.
Women so often, to me, have a kind of continuous quality which can go on really for quite a long time. Whereas with the man, so often it seems in spurts, up and down. There is a difference, and they do sort of complement each other.
There will be talks and master classes. Valda Setterfield, who danced with the company for a long time, the partner and muse of David Gordon, will be here to do a talk in the middle of the 10 days. And as I mentioned, the exhibition will run for a good number of months up in Medtronic Gallery. And then we'll open a second exhibition in December showing the work of Ernesto Neto, who did these beautiful designs with this one piece for Merce. Corey Dargell is a singer. He lives in between worlds of classical music and oratorio and a kind of indie rock. He reminds me a little bit of a slightly kind of contemporary classical version of someone like Stephen Merritt, who's the witty songwriter and singer of The Magnetic Fields. And Corey was good enough to make a kind of artful videotape, and this will tell you a lot about who he is. He's going to be performing. We're actually collaborating with the SBCO. It's going to be in the Ham building in their special small space there, and he's collaborating with the violinist Todd Reynolds, who was a longtime member of Ethel and plays with Meredith Monk and just about everybody in the downtown new music scene in New York, and our own Ensemble 61, a really strong new contemporary contemporary music ensemble based here in the Twin Cities.
Hi, I'm Corey Dargle, composer and singer-songwriter, and I'm thrilled to be making my Walker Art Center debut as part of its upcoming season. On November 9th and 10th, I'll be singing some upbeat songs about depression and hypochondria with the violinist Todd Reynolds and the Twin Cities' own Ensemble 61. Here's a sample of some of the songs we'll be doing, along with some cute photos of my cat.
This is a song about Ritalin.
I was given Ritalin. Little did they know that babies grow a little less with each dose. Ritalin has whittled me down and imposed fewer hearts.
So I'm looking forward to performing my songs for you and to being back in the Twin Cities for the first time since 2007. Thanks to the Walker Arts Center, St. Paul Chamber Orchestra, and Kate Nordstrom Projects for presenting my work. See you soon. Bye.
Kind of tells the stories. Big Dance Theater is a company that we, a number of years ago, had come several times. We had a piece called Another Telepathic Thing as part of our Out There Festival when we were producing at the Southern and with the Southern. Another piece called Plan B, which we co-commissioned, but it's been 8 years since they've been back. And I saw their last piece, which I thought was brilliant, and have followed them a bit, of late, and they told me about this new work that they wanted to make, and we chose to come in as the lead commissioner. It's a remake of Euripides' Alcestis, the Greek drama, or kind of comic drama, oddly enough. It has Annie B. and Paul. This is probably their largest work to date. They are ones that fuse really naturally video elements, text, movement, straightforward theatrical approaches, and I think this is an unusual play. It's one that's been often thought of as a difficult play because of its consistent shifts of tone. But I think for the way that Big Dance Theater approaches their work, which to my mind sometimes the layering is done so well and so tightly, but also the kind of visual imagery and emotions that bubble up in their work can be just stunningly beautiful. The singer-performer Cynthia Hopkins that's how we discovered her, because she was performing with them 12 years ago in Another Telepathic Thing. They used a translation, as they'll tell you, from Anne Carson, the poet. And here's Annie B. Parson and Paul Lazar are a couple, and one comes out of the theater world, has worked with the Wooster Group, and is also a kind of dryly comic actor, has a funny guy like Corey is, and Jerome as well. And his wife Annie B. Parson is a great choreographer and also theater director. And here they are also, I think, at 2 in the morning talking about this work.
Hi, I'm Annie B. Parson, and
I'm Paul Lazar.
And we're the co-directors of Big Dance Theater. We're bringing Supernatural Wife to your theater, the Walker, in November. The last piece we brought was to the Southern Theater, and this will be our first presentation in the new theater.
Supernatural Wife is an adaptation of a play by Euripides called Alcestis, because Alcestis is the protagonist. Alcestis is a queen whose husband is dying, but they make a deal with the gods. The husband, the king, can save his life, can live. He just has one problem. He has to find someone who will die in his place, will die for him. And nobody's willing to do it except his wife, the queen.
This is a 2,500-year-old story, still extremely resonant, and a rich adventure into the ideas around grief and autonomy and marriage and it's endlessly rich. But we're just as interested stylistically in how you present a story now as we are in the plot itself. Our company is primarily a dance company. We use about 50% of the text, and the text is translated by Ann Carson.
And Ann Carson, when she spoke to us about us using her translation, she's a great scholar and a great poet in her own right. We were nervous that she would not be receptive to the idea of the text being cut and it being replaced by dances. But when we proposed this to Ann Carson, her response, without any prompting from us, was take out the text and put in dances. So Ann, as a scholar, I think understands how deeply integrated movement and singing were in the Greek plays. And I think that's why our company in particular tapped into some feeling of the original plays. I'm not quite 2,500, so I don't know exactly what it was like then, but this has a scent of authenticity to it in my bones.
Here's a clip from the work.
Why does Augustus choose to die for her husband? I washed my white skin in river water, took out garments from the cedar closet and dressed myself beautifully. Then I stood before the hearth and prayed, Lady, I go beneath the ground. One last time I kneel to you and make entreaty. Protect my orphaned children. Yoke the boy to a loving wife and the girl to a noble husband. Do not let them die like me, but live out the full delight of life in the land of their fathers. Then I went to all the altars of the house, wreathed them in paid, tearing up branches of myrtle. I did not weep, I did not groan, my face showed no change, but I entered the chamber, fell in the bed, and tears came. I spoke, oh my bed, here I loosed my maidenhood beneath the man for whom I die. Farewell, I do not hate you, though you bring me to death, I could not betray him. Some other woman will own you now, not better than me, but luckier.
And then this is a short scene of her being ushered down into the underworld. They're also known for their fabulous use of music, and a really powerful emotional undercurrent of this work is a score called Men by the composer David Lang, who's known for his work with Bang on a Can and others. This work premiered in Paris last spring and toured to 4 French cities to great acclaim. It played at Jacob's Pillow, had its U.S. debut. Also got great responses and real high critical acclaim. And this will be its second U.S. date. The difference here is that we're looking at and talking with Annie B. what her real hope, and she hasn't been able to achieve this quite yet, is to involve an extra core of dancers for a couple of scenes. And so we will be looking for dancers who are 40 years and older to work with us to be part of a couple of these scenes. So if you're interested, let us know. Choreographers Evening is back over Thanksgiving weekend. Local choreographer and man around town, and great, I think, sort of adhesive spirit for the dance community here. Chris Schlichting is going to curate, I'm sure, a great night of 10 to 12 short works from a whole range of choreographers. We've become such a great hub nationally for interesting choreography and dance coming out of the Twin Cities that this has taken on, I think, in recent years, even more importance and more of a sense of celebration. Our Out There Festival in January this year has a particularly global orientation. In fact, I think in the last 5 or 8 years or so, there's been a lot of ensemble work. In fact, it's been a real kind of movement in contemporary theater and performance. Groups of people collectively making projects together. Last year, we brought a whole range of work from Europe here, and this year we really are looking at individual, iconoclastic, driving forces and new ways of thinking about live theater and performance from different parts of the world, starting with, we have artists from Japan, from Lebanon, from Argentina, and we start with an artist based in New York City of Korean descent. I think one of the really smartest, most provocative, and I think successful playwrights and theater makers of her generation, a woman named Young-Jean Lee, who decided that she really, what she does when she starts making her works is she says, what is the thing I would most hate to have to do in terms of my next piece? And then she goes ahead and attempts to make that work. Her work, Songs of Dragons Flying to Heaven, was an Asian identity piece that was both wildly funny and really disturbing, that happened as part of our Out There festival. She did a piece called The Shipment that was a rumination on race in America. The last piece she had with us was called Church, which was a very kind of straightforward Christian church service that was also, I think, brilliantly written and finished with a kind of Up With People choir involved. This new piece, the Multimedia Feminist Technology Show, it has some tongue-in-cheek qualities about it, but she is I saw a workshop of it last January, and it's again sort of hilariously disoriented. You're not sure where you sit with it. In some ways, it's a kind of, she creates a kind of feminist utopia full of dancing fairies who have no clothes on, and led by a debate between a man and a woman who you quickly realize that the butch man who's critiquing feminism is transgender, as is the middle-aged woman who's beautiful and is upholding the tenets of feminism. And so everything gets blurry, and people I'm sure will probably upset people in all sides, but also totally, I think, engage an audience with what can theater be in our times. I just think I have great faith in her. I happened to wander into a show. She just made a little cabaret piece with her on stage singing, which is something she always hated to do, called We're Gonna Die. Got huge rave reviews. It was about like Americans' unwillingness to deal with mortality. It was a series of indie rock songs. She formed a band. It was at the Joe's Pub a few months ago. Lines were around the block because it was so well done and interesting. So we encourage you to come check out Young-Jean Lee's The Feminist Technology Play. Just a note on the technology notion. A lot of her colleagues and people that were her peers in New York were making very elaborate, highly technical theatrical works. And she never used technology in that way. But this time she was going to make a piece that was using all the bells and whistles and all kinds of video and this and that. And as she got halfway through the thinking and working on it, she decided to leave the title but go in a very opposite direction. But in the workshop, the videos that she was showing were actually these things she just ripped kind of illegally right offline, of images of what people might think are sort of cliched feminine images. Horses slowly romping across the fields, and pretty kittens and things like that. It's just very weird and interesting. And across the videos, it had the thing, do not duplicate or do not take away. So the second week is an artist who lives as much in the visual art world as he does in the performance world. He's a storyteller, but also works out of a kind of conceptual basis. His name is Rabia Moreh. He's based in Lebanon, and he spent his time, I think, making theater works that ruminate on the troubled history of his country, but also has real universal, I think, impact or appeal. I saw this piece, Looking for a Missing Employee in Europe, and for whatever reason, he's not made it to the States yet. But a year ago, a group of colleagues that are part of 4 organizations, part of something called the Spalding Gray Commission Award that we've been part of, decided to award this award for a new work to Robbie. And we had a kind of dinner, and he made a special little videotape. This is over a year old now. But this is Robbie Moreh, just giving a sense of who this artist is.
Hello, good evening. I'm really so happy. I wrote a letter, and I would like to read it for you. It's a big surprise to know that I've won the Spalding Gray Award. It's really a great honor to have an award with the name of such a great performer, writer, theater maker as Spalding Gray. And I feel that there's a big responsibility now on me to do work that holds the name of this great artist. Actually, my surprise also is that I've won an award in a country that I've never been before. It's really touching and moving to know that there are some people, some associations that are located very far from where I live, from where I work, are following my works and interested in them, and so generous to give me such an honorable award. Thank you so much. I will try to provoke myself to shake my norms, habits, and beliefs. So, from theater practices to politics, and from the problem of representations to writing history, this work will start from my personal, my private life, via documents, photos, texts, and will go through fiction and found objects to fabricate other documents and new truths. I would like to thank you again and again for your trust, for the interest in my work, for the great support. I'm so excited, I'm so enthusiastic to be with you in the near future, to visit the state for the first time with a new work. It's really great. What else? I would have loved to be with you now to celebrate this great moment. So enjoy and see you very soon. Thank you, bye, ciao.
It's an interesting construct he creates in the theater. He comes out and welcomes people very warmly, and then he says, "I'll see you in a minute." And he goes up and sits in the theater, and sitting there is a video camera aiming down at a desk in front of him, installed in the theater, and another one looking right at his face. So he's performing live in the theater, but you're looking at it on a video screen. And then there's a sketch artist that comes with him, he's a colleague, who's making drawings throughout the show. That's also recorded from an above-head video camera. And then at Rabia's desk is all kinds of news clippings and photos and all these things that he's constructed, this kind of history of this missing employee lost in the bureaucracy of Lebanon, of Beirut. And you're not sure what is truth and what is fiction, what is memory, what is real, but it's a really intriguing, mysterious commentary on the sort of sad state from his perspective of what his country has lived through and how it's functioning right now. He's both in demand and is facing an interesting challenge, like Faustin Lenyakula. You know, I just recently his wife mentioned that they've been threatened by Hezbollah. They're considering moving to Berlin. Their lives are kind of constantly a negotiation of how they can continue to raise issues and make work while at the same time stay at home. His new piece that the Spalding Award commissioned is a smaller scale, intimate PowerPoint kind of work. So what we're going to do is show that for free as part of our Inside Out There afternoon series as part of Out There. Out There has every Thursday night, it's 3 performances each weekend. Thursday night, it's Meet the Artists in the Bar. Friday night, it's a Q&A. Saturday in the afternoon, you get to actually take a workshop with the artists and learn how they make their work itself. This will be a little different. It'll be instead a chance to see his newest work, which he's calling A Pixelated Revolution, and it's about the uprising in Syria. And in fact, I think his work is very much reflective and informed by the Arab Spring, and it gives us a chance here in Minnesota to see through an artist's eyes what was the sort of foundational source of this kind of youthful uprising that we're seeing in so many different countries. Toshiko Okadi was here about 4 years ago. He's a director and a playwright from Japan. He makes a fusion of really interesting stylistic elements, a dramatic, color delighting, actors who are kind of perform in a deadpan kind of way, but at the same time are doing these odd, interesting sort of movements that almost seem like they're coming out uncontrollably out of their bodies. And he made a triptych, which is both very poignant and very funny, called Hot Pepper, Air Conditioner, and The Farewell Speech. And it follows a generation who are now in their mid-20s their last piece, 5 Days in March, was about some sort of middle to late teenagers. And this is like as if they live, 8 years later. They've got low-end office jobs in Tokyo. They're completely disposable. They're temp workers, essentially. And the first section of the piece is about a group of young office workers debating where they should order lunch. Hot Pepper's a fast food joint in Tokyo. And underscoring it is the music of John Cage. And then the second part of the triptych, air conditioner, is two employees arguing about whether the air conditioning should be on or not. And it has the music of a blistering solo from the mid-'60s from John Coltrane, kind of driving the work. And the final work is a woman who's just been fired, a temp worker, and she goes on a rambling, sad, funny, long speech to the rest of her 6 colleagues present there in the office about what's next for her and about how she's feeling around this dismissal. He's a really interesting, great, I think, artist, and glad to have Okada back here as part of Out There. Finally, is an artist new to us, Mariano Pensati, is a director, mid-20s. He's a filmmaker from Argentina, Buenos Aires. He made a piece called The Past is a Grotesque Animal, and it comes from a Of Montreal song. It has a real global sensibility. It's about 4 friends. Also has sort of like a bit of a soap opera quality, but the script is fantastic, and it really has a kind of meta-fiction quality about it. It traces these friends over 10 years. They lived through the ramifications of 9/11, the crisis, the economic crisis in Argentina, all kinds of personal travails, attempted suicides and divorces, and it all happens on a large turntable set. So you'll see it sort of slowly rotating, and it changes in speed as well. And every few minutes, a scene goes by, and the room completely changes when the next quadrant comes through on this set. It will be actually, I just saw it again at a festival in Holland, and the translations work really well. The surtitles are right next to the set, and it's both great writing and I think really powerful performance from Latin America. Bill T. Jones was just with us for a couple of weeks making a new piece here, a piece called Storytime. Appropriately enough, it's a piece inspired by John Cage, by a work he did in the 50s called Indeterminacy. And it's a series of short stories, 1-minute stories. And his dance company is choreographed around him. It's a real risk, I think, for Bill T. Jones. Bill has had a very long history with us here at the Walker, but since he was last here, he's had a hit Broadway show, Fela. He has had another Broadway hit, Spring Awakening, which he choreographed. He's won the Kennedy Center honors up there in the box next to President Obama and Michelle, and along with Paul McCartney and Oprah Winfrey and Merle Haggard. And he's obviously a world class artist and figure, but because of his long history with us, he was very interested in making a work for his company that is almost a counterbalance to the commercial theatrical work that he's making. The showing that he did the week before last was really beautiful. And so let me have Bill tell you a little bit about his coming back.
Hello, everybody. This is Bill T. Jones here. I'm sitting at the Walker Art Center. We're here working on new work for the company called Storytime, informed by John Cage's landmark experiment, Indeterminacy. I've been in retirement. I wanted to get back on the stage. Philip Bither here, Jed Wheeler at the Peak Performances in the Castle. People are giving me an opportunity to get back on the stage in the way I want to. I want to come on stage and tell stories while my beautiful company dances with and around me. It's a great time to be working. It's a scary time right now. We want to take risk, and we want to be loved. Yeah, we want to be loved. So come see the work. Come to the Walker. We'll be back in February with Storytime.
What was interesting about the piece is these little 1-minute snippets, these anecdotes, these memories of history, of his own personal history, these interactions, encounters with other major artists and things, really kind of both spoke to a sense of a passage of time, an artist who is now just about to turn 60, a reflective mode of looking back, and also the style of the work broken up into these little 1-minute components really itself informed us around this sense of the fragility of life and the passage, how time is so defined and broken up in this work. Kind of, it sort of had this sense of, it had a kind of emotional, I think, resonance that gave it this power. Especially, Bill has had a pretty interesting life, and he shaped it, and not in a way that you might fear that it's all about him and all looking inward, but really as a way that it kind of had a reflection of our culture at large over these years. Vijay Iyer is, I think, really one of the most interesting and talented artists working in the label called jazz, but he's so far beyond just that stylistic definition. He's a pianist, composer. He's worked in collaborative works that involve hip-hop. He produced Das Racis, this young hip-hop group, for a couple of songs on their first record. He has a whole bunch of different bands and configurations. When he put out his group with this record, Historicity, in 2009, it was one of the first times in my memory that it won the #1 jazz record of the year in the New York Times, Downbeat, the Village Voice, and many other places. It's a fantastic record. He came right back with a solo record the next year, which was equally strong. So rather than just bringing his trio in or having him do a solo concert, we talked with him about a 2-day festival around his music, and he's going to bring 5 of his bands or his collaborative elements to the Walker stage, including this fabulous new group, a kind of global chamber group called Tirtha, which involves an Indian-based, really interesting guitarist who uses that sense of Indian scales in his playing, and a tabla player who's Indian American, who's based in the East Coast, and this group Tirtha just released a record also to significant acclaim. But I'll let Vijay. Here's a little bit of a conversation. We didn't record it, but it was done for a television station that has him talking about his work.
Something I think about a lot when I'm creating music is how can I push myself beyond what I know or beyond what I'm immediately able to do. It is very much connected to what is known as yoga, in the same sense that you have to come to terms with what the limits of your abilities are and then gently push on those boundaries and expand your sense of what's possible. The act of trying to achieve those things and the reach that requires is very productive. Even if you don't achieve exactly what is intended by the composer, the sound of somebody reaching is actually a very compelling sound. It's something that I hear in the history of jazz, for example. It's the sound of people reaching for justice. You know, that's what that sounds like.
So there'll be 2 separate programs, 3 bands on one night, 3 on another. We have one duo that's still, we haven't yet announced yet. We have a surprise duo, but so we'll be selling a package to both nights, or you can buy individual tickets to. The Sound of Surprise, the title came from one of the reviews that came out on Historicity, and they said, well, here is the sound of surprise. Mark Bamuthi Joseph, San Francisco-based spoken word artist, hip-hop poet, now more kind of full-fledged theater maker, also a dancer. Mark came with us the first time 3 or 4 years ago and did a piece called The Breaks. And it was a kind of coming-of-age story around a hip-hop artist who had become successful in the theater world. And it was, I loved how self-deprecating it was, how smart, how beautiful the poetry in the piece was. And it was so successful here with audiences and from our perspective that we asked him if we wanted, agreed to support his next piece, which is called Red, Black, Green, a Blues. And it's a piece that looks at global warming from a unique perspective. He was wondering why his community in the inner city, primarily an African-American community, wasn't connected to the green movement as much as he thought they should be. And he started going out and talking with folks about, you know, environmental awareness and eco-justice issues, and found that people had a lot of other things that they needed to worry about in different ways and really didn't trust the language of environmentalism that many of us, I think, are just regularly use. He started thinking instead of what makes whole communities, what makes healthy communities. And he created a work on a more general sense, but really what drives it is this concern around what we're doing to our planet and global warming in general. He engaged a visual artist named Theaster Gates, comes out of Chicago, also works in very social, community-connected ways, but also has gotten a huge amount of acclaim, has actually been selected to do a major work at the Venice Biennale. Theaster is making a set of installations on stage that will reflect these festivals that they've produced in different parts of the country, including work they've done in our community here, in particular in with collaborators in North Minneapolis. And the piece itself will involve spoken text, live music, movement, and the audience in the first half of the evening will actually be on stage with these installation works and be able to wander amongst and in them while the artists are doing mini performances. And then we'll go back to our seats and see the finish of the rest of the show. Premieres in a couple of months in San Francisco and will be here with us in March. A music project called 802 Tour has really four remarkable musicians in their 20s and early 30s. Nico Muhly has gotten a lot of attention in our own community just last week when he premiered a major work for the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. He also has a kind of more informal indie rock side of him, but he's really considered his generation's most prominent, successful composer. Influenced a bit by Philip Glass, but also has a kind of lyrical quality to his writing. Sam Amadon is a folk musician, but has kind of taken old folk songs and Irish tunes, and he has an encyclopedic knowledge. His parents are folk musicians in Vermont, but he's kind of made folk music hip again. He's like kind of created a whole different sonic vibe to the work, and it's raw, but is really haunting. And then Thomas Bartlett, who goes by the name Doveman, had that beautiful song at the end of our sampler tape, the trailer, that the more you hear it, you just can't get it out of your head. He has a kind of late night, sad, sort of mournful quality to his singing, ambient kind of quality. He lives in the sort of indie rock world. They were all friends in Vermont, and they did this tour 2 years ago. Since then, all their careers have kind of exploded, but they agreed to come back together one more time just because they like playing together so much, and they all support each other. There'll be music by all three of them, and then Nadia Serrata is a violist who will be kind of also part of it all and supporting them. Nadia's done a lot of work in the Twin Cities at the Southern, as well as in our galleries as part of Sound Horizon last year. This will be really a special 2 nights. Moving on, Seun Kuti, the youngest son of Fela Kuti, the inventor of Afrobeat from Nigeria, the guy who Bilty Jones created this play about called Fela. Seun has never performed in the Midwest. He's riveting and has such high energy and is really bringing Afrobeat to kind of into the 21st century. Just had a brand new recording produced by Brian Eno that is really strong, and live he's supposed to be fantastic. I have not had the chance to see him live, but Cedar Cultural Center and the Walker joined forces to bring him next April to do a performance at Cedar. The Lisps is as a sort of neo-folk band. It's rare that the Walker will ever venture into the world of musical theater or music theater, but you know, in recent times there's so many interesting innovations happening in that form. And this band called Futurity created this band called the Lisps out of Brooklyn created this show called Futurity that has, I think, such a smart and endearing kind of book to it. It's complex but heartfelt. They have a band of about 15 musicians who perform with them. And since we made a commitment to this work with a little bit of commissioning money to help further it along, American Repertory Theater in Boston has made a commitment to actually produce the next version in Boston for a 6-week run, and then it will come immediately to us. The band, the story itself takes place in the Civil War, but let me have these guys tell you a little bit about it. These are the 2 leaders of the Lisps, and they'll introduce themselves. This is in Prospect Park in Brooklyn.
I'm Sammy Tunis.
And I'm Cesar Alvarez.
And we are in the Lisps. We are a band from
Brooklyn, New York, and we're coming to the Walker in April of 2012 to perform our musical Futurity.
Futurity is a Civil War science fiction musical about a Civil War soldier who's trying to invent a steam-powered artificial intelligence that, with its great intelligence, will solve all of humanity's problems and end war for all time. We're going to play you a song. This is called Arkansas. It's the first song in the show. Prettiest girl that ever I saw stood on the banks of the Arkansas. And then she twirled and her eyes were green. She was the prettiest girl that ever I'd seen.
Craziest thing that ever I saw, big balloon floating up o'er the Arkansas, and up to the heavens it was bound to go. Craziest thing that ever I'd known.
Most wonderful thing I could make believe was a world where peace was the reigning queen. I dreamt it on the banks of the Arkansas. Most wonderful thing that ever I saw. Ugliest thing that ever I thought was the type of man that was sold and bought. Evilest thing that ever I saw it happen on the banks of the Arkansas. Bloodiest thing I'd ever behold was 20,000 dead, laying young and old. Bloodiest thing that ever I saw it right there on the Arkansas. And now I'm dying, won't live for long. Last peep I'll make is this dying song. I lived my life and that is all. I'll die right here on the Arkansas. See you in April. Thanks.
This is a big kind of machine built as a percussive element in the back, and it plays a major role in the work. Finally, the last music event to talk about is the band Tortoise from Chicago. Been around about 20 years. They invented almost a kind of new style of music that involves electronics, dub, rock, jazz, free improv. It's an instrumental group, but they've had a big impact. In fact, there was a whole label called Post Rock that was kind of named after they broke out. They did a concert last year in Chicago with a number of the legendary figures from the AACM Jazz Collective in Chicago, and they are going to do the same with our musician community here. We're in the process of identifying and inviting a handful of key musicians from the Twin Cities. They know how interesting the music scene is here and really wanted to expand and collaborate in this way with the Twin Cities. And finally, David Zambrano from Venezuela, but living in recent years in New York and then in Holland, is a kind of Johnny Appleseed of improvising dance, contemporary dance maker. Did this really interesting piece last year. It was curated actually by Ralph Lemon, the choreographer at Dance Space, as part of a platform called Body Madness. And it's we're going to close off the stage. It's the last event of the year to turn this whole environment into kind of a dance party. He's got 6 of the kind of world's finest improvisers who improvise with great passion and almost in a kind of intense trance state. You saw a few clips at the start of the evening. And they all perform to classic live versions, recorded versions of American soul music and funk music. The final performance on that Saturday night will turn into a dance party, and on the Thursday night they'll be doing some specially constructed improvised pieces in the galleries to pieces of part of our permanent collection, which the individual dance artists will select weeks in advance to make their work around and for. So that's the end of the season. Thank you for your attention, your patience. One last thing I'd like to show you is that back in '58, when Cunningham made a beautiful piece called Summer Space, the set was designed by Robert Rauschenberg, and Jasper Johns actually collaborated with the making of it. They decided to make a pointillistic kind of picture of nature, which the costumes reflected the same way, and the dancers would kind of get lost and camouflaged in and out of the middle of it. So I found out the other day that we were rolling these drops out because we now own them and getting them straightened, which isn't quite done yet. But I asked that we keep one up. You'll see that again in the gallery space when we open the Medtronic show, Rauschenberg and Cunningham, in November. But we have it hanging in the back here. And before I wrap up, just to remind you, please come down as soon as the lights come up and have a toast or have a drink with us, and then we'll go up to the balcony bar. Also, I'd like to say a special thanks to Emily Taylor, who did a great job putting this presentation together on the Performing Arts staff, the rest of the Performing Arts staff, the great tech crew here, and a special thanks to our Producers Council that support our work year-round, and a thanks to you for your interest and curiosity and your, hopefully, your energy around coming back many times in this coming season to see the work of Performing Arts 11-12 at the Walker. Thanks again. Magic. There's a table with drinks and champagne and Merce's Summer Space. Cheers.